Just like solving two-step equations, when we solve multi-step equations, we have to make sure that we use the order of operations in reverse when we try to isolate our variable. What we also need to remember is that before we can isolate our variable, we have to make sure that both sides of our equation are simplified. So until both sides of my equation are in simplest form, I can't start moving things from one side to the other. So let's look at an example. This problem says 6y plus 8 minus 3y equals negative 4. I notice that on the left side of my equation, I have like terms. I have 6y and 3y that can be combined. So I'm going to combine these by doing 6y minus 3y. And 6y minus 3y is 3y. 8 does not have a like term on the left side of the equation, so I'm just going to rewrite plus 8. And then the right side of my equation only has negative 4. Now, when I look at my equation, I see that both sides of my equation are in simplest form. Now I can solve like normal. So now I'm going to use the order of operations in reverse, which means I'm going to subtract 8 from both sides of my equation. The additive inverse of 8 and negative 8 cancel to leave me with 3y and then my equal sign. And then negative 4 minus 8 is negative 12. Now all I have to do to get y by itself is divide by positive 3 on both sides. And now I'm left with y equals, and then negative 12 divided by positive 3 is negative 4. So that means that y is equal to negative 4. In this equation, I notice that I don't have like terms on my left side or on my right side, but I do need to distribute my 3 so that I can simplify this right side of my equation. So I'm going to distribute the 3. I didn't do anything to the left side of the equation, so I'm just going to rewrite my 18 and my equal sign. And over here, I'm going to multiply 3 times 3x, which would give me 9x. And then I'm going to multiply 3 times negative 6, which would give me negative 18. Now I can see that both sides of my equation are in simplest form. So now I'm going to isolate my variable x by getting rid of both 9 and 18. I need to start with my 18, so I'm going to use the inverse of subtracting 18, which is adding 18 on both sides. 18 plus 18 will give me 36. Negative 18 and positive 18 are additive inverses, so they cancel. And I'm going to bring down my 9x. Now I see that x is being multiplied by 9, so I'm going to use the inverse of multiplying by 9, which is dividing by 9 on both sides. 36 divided by 9 leaves me with 4. And 9 over 9, these are multiplicative inverses, so they cancel and I'm left with x. So x is equal to 4. On this equation, I see that I need to distribute my negative 5 before I can get started. So I'm going to distribute my negative 5 to both terms in my parentheses. Negative 5 times positive 6n is negative 30n. Then negative 5 times this positive 6 is negative 30. To show that this 30 is negative, I'm going to write minus 30. And then I'll write the rest of my equation, which is equals 30. Now I can see that both sides of my equation are simplified, so now I can start isolating my variable. I'm going to get rid of my subtracting 30 first, so I'm going to use the inverse of subtracting 30, which is adding 30 on both sides of my equation. Negative 30 plus positive 30 will cancel because they are additive inverses, and I'm going to bring down negative 30n equals, and on this side I'm going to add 30 plus 30, which gives me 60. Now I need to get rid of negative 30 over here. I see that negative 30 is multiplying by n, so I'm going to use the inverse, which is dividing by negative 30 on both sides. My negative 30s will cancel to leave me with n equals, and then positive 60 divided by negative 30 is negative 2. So n is equal to negative 2. Now this equation looks a little bit more complicated, but I'm still going to take the same steps to solve. So I see that I have nothing that can be combined yet, but what I do have is a 5 that can be distributed into my parentheses. Now, I'm not doing anything with this negative 3, so I'm just going to rewrite it. Then I'm going to multiply this positive 5 times x. Well, 5 times 1x is 5x, so I'm going to write plus 5x. Then positive 5 times positive 6 is positive 30, so I'm going to write plus 30. And then I'm going to write the rest of my equation, which is equals 37. Now, I can't actually get started on anything yet, because if you notice, the left side of my equation is not actually simplified. I still have like terms because I have two constants that can be combined. I have negative 3 plus 30. So the first thing I'm going to do is add negative 3 plus 30. Well, negative 3 plus positive 30 gives me positive 27. Now those are combined, and now I need to write my plus 5x, which does not have a like term. And then the rest of my equation still says equals 37. Now I can see that both sides of my equation are simplified, so now I can isolate my variable. I'm going to get rid of my 27 first. So to get rid of 27, you see that this is a positive 27. So to remove it, I am going to subtract 27 from both sides of this equation. 27 minus 27 will cancel, and this leaves me with positive 5x. On this side, I have 37 minus 27, which leaves me with 10. Now I'm going to use the inverse of multiplying by 5 to get rid of my 5. So I'm going to divide by 5 on both sides of my equation. My 5's will cancel and leave me with x equals, and then 10 divided by 5 is 2. So my solution is x equals 2. Now for this problem, again, you can see that I need to distribute my 5. So I'm going to distribute 5 into my parentheses. 5 times positive 4m is positive 20m. 5 times positive 1 is positive 5, so I'm going to write plus 5. And then you see that I have minus 2m, which I haven't done anything with, so I'm going to rewrite it. I'm also going to rewrite equals negative 13. Now on the left side of my equation, I need to simplify because I still have some like terms. So I'm going to combine 20m and negative 2m by doing 20m minus 2m. 20m minus 2m gives me 18m. So these have been combined, and I'm left with plus 5 in my expression, so I'm going to write plus 5. Then I'm going to write the rest of my equation, which says equals negative 13. Now I'm going to isolate my m by getting rid of 18 and 5. I'm going to start with 5, so I'm going to subtract 5 from both sides. These are going to cancel, and I'm going to bring down 18m and then my equal sign. Over here, I'm going to subtract negative 13 minus 5, which leaves me with negative 18. Finally, I need to get rid of my 18 with my m, so I'm going to use the inverse of multiplying by 18, which means I'm going to divide by 18 on both sides. These will cancel and leave me with m equals, and then negative 18 divided by positive 18 is negative 1. This means that m has a value of negative 1. Now let's look at this equation. You'll notice it looks a little bit different because we see this negative 3/5, but it doesn't change how we solve anything. We still need to distribute negative 3/5 into my parentheses. So I'm going to start by multiplying negative 3/5 times 25x. Now this may look a little bit complicated, but it's not. We're going to multiply negative 3/5 times positive 25x. Well, remember that whenever we have a whole number, there's an invisible 1 under it. So we can solve this like normal. I see that I'm multiplying a negative times a positive, which means my answer is going to be negative. And then I'm multiplying 3 times 25x, which would give me 75x. And I'm multiplying 5 times 1, which would give me 5. Well, all I need to do now is divide 75x by 5, and that would leave me with 15x. And this negative sign is going to remain to show me that this is a negative 15x. So negative 3/5 times 25x gives me negative 15x. Now I'm going to do the same thing with negative 3/5 times negative 10. I know that the 10 is negative because of this minus sign right here. So negative 3/5 times negative 10, well, I'm going to put my negative 10 over 1, and then I'm going to multiply. I see that I'm multiplying a negative times a negative, which means my answer is going to be positive. So I can just focus on my numbers right now. 3 times 10 is 30, and 5 times 1 is 5, so this is 30 over 5, and we know that this is going to be positive. So all we have to do is divide 30 by 5, which gives us 6. Now, since this is positive 6, I'm going to write plus 6 here. So what I've done is I've simplified this part of my equation, but I still have this plus 6 on the outside of my parentheses that I need to rewrite, along with my equals negative 33. Now I can see that on this side of my equation, I have two constants, a 6 and a 6, that can be simplified. So this is positive 6 plus 6, which is 12. So my equation will now say negative 15x plus 12 equals negative 33. Now I can solve like normal. So I'm going to subtract 12 from both sides of my equation. These are going to cancel, and I'll be left with negative 15x equals, and then negative 33 minus 12 is negative 45. Now I need to divide by negative 15 on both sides of my equation. These are going to cancel and leave me with x equals, and negative 45 divided by negative 15 is positive 3. So x is equal to positive 3. Now let's do one more. For this problem, I'm multiplying 3/8 into my parentheses. So 3/8 times 1x is just 3/8 x. Then I need to multiply 3/8 times negative 16. Well, if I multiply positive 3/8 times negative 16, I need to remember that that's over 1. I see that I'm multiplying a positive times a negative, which means my answer is going to be negative. And then I'm just going to multiply straight across. 3 times 16 is 48, and 8 times 1 is 8. So I have negative 48 over positive 8, which leaves me with negative 6. So 3/8 times negative 16 is negative 6, and I'm going to write minus 6 to show that it was negative. Then I still have this minus 5 on the outside and equals 1. Now I need to combine my like terms before I can start isolating my variable. I see that I have negative 6 minus 5. And if I subtract negative 6 minus 5, I get negative 11. So I didn't do anything with 3/8x, so I'm going to rewrite it. But I combined negative 6 minus 5 to make negative 11, so I'm going to write minus 11. All of this is equal to 1. Now I can isolate my variable by adding 11 to both sides of my equation. Negative 11 plus positive 11 will cancel, and I'm left with 3/8 x equals, and then 1 plus 11 is 12. Now I still need to get rid of my 3/8, and I see that 3/8 is being multiplied by x. So the inverse of multiplying by 3/8 is dividing by 3/8 on both sides. Well, these are going to cancel to leave me with x equals. On this side, I have 12 divided by 3/8. Well, I remember from dividing fractions that I'm always going to keep my divisor the same, and I'm going to multiply my divisor by the reciprocal of the dividend. So I'm going to multiply 12 by 8/3, since that is the reciprocal of 3/8. I can put a 1 under my 12, and then I can multiply. 12 times 8 gives me 96, and 1 times 3 is 3. Now all I have to do is solve 96 divided by 3, which would give me 32. That means that x is equal to 32.